My parents hired a lawyer to control my life. When I first heard the news, I thought it was a joke. I mean, how could my parents, the people who had raised me and supposedly cared about my well-being, actually hire a lawyer to control my life? It didn't make sense. I had always thought I was an independent person, someone who could make my own decisions and carve out my own path in life. But that all changed the day I came home from college for the weekend, only to find a letter waiting for me on the kitchen counter. The letter was formal, typed on crisp, white paper. At first, I assumed it was something mundane, perhaps a bill or a letter from the bank, but as soon as I saw the law firm's name at the top, my stomach dropped. I had no idea why a lawyer would be involved in my life, and the confusion only grew as I read on. Dear Amelia, we are writing to inform you that effective immediately, we have been retained by your parents to assist in guiding your future decisions. As their legal representatives, we will be overseeing various aspects of your personal and professional life to ensure alignment with their wishes. The letter went on, outlining several key areas where my life would be managed by the lawyer: financial decisions, career, choices, even my relationships. It was as though they had completely taken control of every aspect of my existence. The lawyer, Mr. Carter, was now supposed to be the intermediary for everything. No more decisions would be made without his input. My heart pounded in my chest as I read on. How had things gotten to this point? I had just turned 22, a recent college graduate, and I thought I was finally on the verge of figuring things out. But instead, I felt like a child again, under the thumb of my parents. I was supposed to be making my own choices, starting my own career, living my own life. But now, everything had been turned upside down. It wasn't just the letter itself that shocked me, but the implications. My parents had always been a little overbearing. They had always pushed me toward a career in medicine, even though I wanted to be a writer. They had insisted I study what they thought was practical and stable, never really listening to my dreams or desires. I had thought once I left for college, I could find my own way. But now it was clear that they were not going to let go that easily. I stood there in the kitchen, the letter trembling in my hands, trying to process the shock. Was this really happening? I tried to reason with myself. Surely this was some kind of misunderstanding, some mistake. But as I reread the letter, the words became clearer. My parents weren't just trying to help me. They were trying to control me, to dictate the trajectory of my life. The lawyer wasn't there to offer advice or assistance. He was there to enforce their decisions, to make sure I complied. It wasn't long before I heard the sound of the door opening, and my parents walked in, looking almost too calm. I could see that they had been waiting for me to get the letter, waiting for the reaction. My father, a tall, imposing figure, walked into the living room with a slight smile on his face, as though this was just another ordinary conversation. My mother followed closely behind him, her usual air of concern replaced with something colder, more calculating. "Did you get the letter?" my father asked, his voice steady, but with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "What is this? Why did you hire a lawyer?" My mother looked at me, her expression unreadable. "We're just trying to help you, sweetie. You're not making the best decisions on your own. We just want what's best for you." Best for me. I had heard that phrase too many times growing up, but now it felt like a cage around me. My heart raced as I tried to form words, but nothing came out. What could I say? I had always tried to please them, always tried to be the good child. But this was different. This was crossing a line. I wanted to scream, to demand my independence back. I wanted to ask them how they could possibly think this was the right thing to do. But all I could do was sit there, my mind spinning, trying to make sense of the situation. "We just want you to be secure, to have a stable future," my father continued. "This is the best way to ensure that." I felt the weight of his words, but they didn't comfort me. They made me feel smaller, like I was still a child, incapable of making decisions for myself. My independence, my dreams, they were slipping through my fingers. "You're not in control anymore," my mother said quietly, her voice soft but firm. "It's time for someone to guide you, and we believe Mr. Carter is the right person." My blood ran cold. Mr. Carter was already my life's new overlord, and I had no say in the matter. I sat there, stunned, trying to digest what my parents had just said. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't believe this was happening. Every time I thought I had a handle on the situation, another piece of the puzzle fell into place, and it was more overwhelming than I could process. I finally found my voice. "You hired someone to control my life? You don't think this is wrong?" My father's expression remained unchanged, but I could see a flicker of something, guilt or doubt, flash in his eyes for a split second. It was gone almost as quickly as it appeared, buried beneath the well-practiced mask of authority. "We've been thinking about this for a while now," he said, sitting down across from me. "You've been struggling to figure things out, and we just want to make sure you're not wasting time or making decisions that will hurt your future. Struggling? Wasting time? I had worked my ass off in college, worked countless hours on papers, projects, and internships, all to make sure I was ready for the real world. But to my parents, it didn't matter. They were so focused on their vision of what my future should look like that they couldn't see the person I had become, the person who had dreams and aspirations outside of their narrow view. I opened my mouth to argue, but my mother spoke before I could get a word out. "We know you're upset, honey, but this isn't about controlling you. It's about giving you the guidance you need. You're still so young. You don't know what you want. We just want you to be happy and secure." Happy and secure? I had always known what I wanted, but apparently it wasn't what they wanted for me. I had chosen writing, something I was passionate about, something that gave me a sense of purpose. But to them, it was a waste of time, a pipe dream. They wanted me to follow the safe path, go to medical school, become a doctor, live the life they had envisioned for me since I was born. "But I do know what I want," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. "I've told you this before. I want to write. I want to create. I want to do something that matters to me, not just to you." My mother looked at me with that expression she always wore when she felt sympathy, but it wasn't comforting. It felt patronizing. "We just don't want you to throw away your future on something that might not work out." I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. Every word they said felt like a push to erase everything I was. They didn't see me for who I was. They saw me as a project, a responsibility. It was suffocating. "I don't need Mr. Carter to tell me what I should do with my life," I said, my voice cracking. "I need you to trust me. I'm not a child anymore. I can make my own decisions. I want you to support me, not control me." There was silence in the room, the kind that felt like a wall between us. My parents exchanged a glance, but neither of them said anything for a long moment. It was like they were trying to decide whether or not I was worth listening to. Finally, my father spoke again, but his tone was different. It was colder, more businesslike. "We're doing this for your own good, Amelia. We know what's best for you, and this is not up for discussion. Mr. Carter is already involved, and from now on, he will be making decisions with you about your career, your finances, your future." I felt a sharp pang in my chest. "You can't just take over my life like this. I'm an adult. You can't control me forever?" "We're doing this because we love you," my mother said, her voice soft but firm. "But sometimes, love means making hard choices. You're not ready to make those choices on your own." I shook my head in disbelief. "You're wrong. I'm ready. I have been for a long time." I stood up abruptly, the anger and frustration rising like a tide inside me. I needed to get out of this house, away from this suffocating conversation, but most of all, away from their expectations that had crushed me for so long. I walked to the door, my mind reeling. My father didn't stop me, nor did my mother. They just watched as I grabbed my keys and headed out. It was the first time in years that I had felt like I was doing something for myself, but it also felt like I was walking away from the people who were supposed to support me, who were supposed to love me for who I was. As I drove away, the weight of everything settled in. The lawyer was real. The control was real. And the worst part was, it seemed like my parents were determined to make sure I never had the freedom to choose again. I couldn't help but wonder, was I wrong to want my independence? Was I wrong to fight for my dreams? Or had I been living in a fantasy, thinking that I could make my own way in the world without their constant interference? The questions haunted me as I drove into the night, uncertain about what the future held. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a friend's place for a while, trying to clear my head, but no matter where I went or what I did, the truth about my parents' decision loomed over me like a shadow. I kept thinking about Mr. Carter, the lawyer they had hired to manage my life. What was his role exactly? Was he really going to be involved in every decision I made? Was he going to dictate my every move, my every relationship? The thought of him being involved in my life made my stomach churn. It felt like I was trapped in some strange, twisted reality where my parents could control everything from afar. They had done it before, pushing me into the safe career, the right choices. But this was different. This wasn't just advice. This was manipulation, a forceful takeover of my autonomy. It wasn't just about what they thought was best for me anymore. It was about their fear of me stepping out of line, of pursuing my own dreams. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was suffocating under their expectations. They loved me, I knew that, but their love came with strings attached, with a set of conditions that I wasn't sure I could live with anymore. They were doing this for my own good, they kept saying, but every time I heard those words, it felt like they were ignoring my desires, my needs, and my right to make mistakes. It wasn't until I received the call from Mr. Carter that I realized how deeply they were involved in this plan. It was around midday when my phone rang. The number wasn't familiar, but when I picked up, I heard a voice that was all too well spoken, too polished. "Hello, Amelia. This is Mr. Carter, your parents' attorney. I hope you're doing well today." I froze. My heart raced as I recognized the name. The reality of the situation hit me all over again. Mr. Carter, the lawyer who had been hired to guide my life, was now on the other end of the phone, reaching out as if this was all just business as usual. "I'm calling to arrange a meeting with you to discuss your financial future," he continued, his voice smooth but detached. "Your parents have outlined a few priorities for us moving forward. We'll need to establish a clear direction for your career, finances, and personal life. It's important that we get started soon." I couldn't speak for a few moments. The calm, impersonal way he spoke made everything feel so much more real. Like this wasn't just a bad dream. They had hired a lawyer to take control of my life, and now that lawyer was treating me like another client, another project to manage. "I'm not sure I need your help," I finally said, my voice shaky with frustration. "I can handle my own life. Thank you." Mr. Carter's tone didn't change. He sounded almost like he was reading from a script. "I understand that this is a difficult adjustment, but I assure you that my role here is to ensure your best interests are represented. Your parents have made it clear that they believe this is necessary to ensure your success." I could feel my temper rising. "I don't need anyone to manage my success, least of all you or my parents. I'm an adult, Mr. Carter. I can make my own decisions." There was a pause on the other end of the line, as if Mr. Carter was assessing how to respond. "I understand your feelings, but it's important to note that this is for your own good. The decisions your parents are making are not just about their desires for you. They're about creating a solid foundation for your future. They care about you deeply." I gritted my teeth. This wasn't about care. This was control. My parents had always made it clear that they didn't trust me to make the right decisions on my own, and now they had found a way to enforce that belief. But Mr. Carter was right about one thing. This wasn't just about their desire to control me, it was about their fear of letting go. They didn't trust me to succeed, to make mistakes, to live my life the way I wanted to. "I'm not interested in meeting with you, Mr. Carter," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I'm done with this. I can handle things on my own." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Finally, Mr. Carter spoke again, this time with a hint of professionalism. "If you change your mind, I will be available. Your parents expect full cooperation in this matter." And with that, he hung up. I sat there, stunned, staring at my phone as if it might suddenly make sense of the conversation. But it didn't. What had just happened? My parents' lawyer had called me, treated me like a subordinate, and expected me to fall in line. It was like everything I had worked for, every step I had taken toward independence, had just been erased. The worst part wasn't that they had hired the lawyer. It was the fact that they truly believed they were doing the right thing, that they were looking out for me, and maybe, in some twisted way, they were. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like control. And I wasn't sure how much more of it I could take. The days that followed were torturous. I couldn't stop thinking about Mr. Carter's call. The more I tried to push it out of my mind, the more it consumed me. Every time I tried to enjoy my freedom, I could almost hear the distant echo of my parents' expectations, their wishes, and their lawyer's voice, reminding me that I wasn't really in control of my life. I avoided speaking to my parents for a while, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to express the way I felt. How could they think that hiring a lawyer to manage my life was the right thing to do? I had always tried to be the good daughter, the one who made them proud. But this felt like betrayal. I decided to go to my best friend's place for a while to clear my head. I needed space, time to think about everything. When I arrived at her apartment, she could see the strain on my face before I even said anything. She offered me a glass of wine, and I sank into her couch, finally feeling the tension leave my body. "So, tell me what happened," she said gently, knowing that whatever I had been through, it was something big. With a deep sigh, I launched into the story. I told her everything, about the letter, about Mr. Carter, about my parents' desire to control every aspect of my life. As I spoke, the weight of it all began to feel heavier. "I don't know what to do," I said, feeling tears sting at the corners of my eyes. "I can't breathe under this pressure. I thought they would understand eventually, but they're only making it worse. They hired a lawyer to force me to follow their vision for my life, and I don't know how to fight back." My friend listened quietly, nodding along as I spoke. "That's a lot to deal with," she said when I was finished. "But you don't have to let them dictate your life. You're an adult and you've worked hard for what you want. You don't have to let them control you like this." I nodded, but I wasn't sure how to escape their grasp. I don't even know how to make them see that I'm capable of making my own decisions. Every time I try, they just push me further into a corner. My friend thought for a moment before responding. Well, maybe it's time to talk to them. Have a serious conversation where you lay out exactly how you feel. You're not going to be able to get anywhere if you don't stand up for yourself. You need to show them that this isn't just about you rebelling, that it's about you wanting to be treated like an adult. Her words hit me like a jolt of electricity. I had been so caught up in the anger and frustration that I hadn't thought about approaching this from a place of calm and understanding. I had been focusing on how to escape the situation, rather than how to confront it head on. But even as I felt a spark of hope, the reality of facing my parents terrified me. How could I possibly sit down with them and explain that I wasn't the helpless child they seemed to think I was? How could I convince them that my dreams mattered just as much as their vision for my life? That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with scenarios, with words I could say, with the right way to make them understand. Every time I imagined speaking to them, I was overwhelmed with doubt. Would they even listen to me? Would they hear me, or would they just see me as a problem to fix? The next morning, after an agonizing night of indecision, I made up my mind. I was going to confront my parents. I was going to sit down with them and demand that they listen to me. I couldn't keep living this way, under their thumb, following their plan for my life like a puppet. I had to speak up, for my sanity, for my future, and for the person I wanted to become. I called my parents and arranged a meeting. I didn't want to wait any longer. I was done being passive, done letting them control the narrative. When I walked into their house that afternoon, my stomach was in knots, but there was a sense of resolve deep inside me. They were sitting in the living room when I arrived, waiting for me. My mother looked at me with that familiar, calculating expression, while my father stared at me as if he were analyzing me, preparing to judge me. I took a deep breath before I spoke. We need to talk. I can't live like this anymore. You hired a lawyer to control my life, and I'm not okay with it. The words hung in the air between us, and I saw their expressions falter, just for a second. But then my father spoke, his voice firm. Amelia, we did this because we care about you. We just want to make sure you make the right decisions. We want you to have a stable future. I don't need you to control me to do that, I said, my voice steady, but firm. I need you to trust me. I'm capable of making my own choices, and I'm asking you to let me. The silence that followed was thick. My heart pounded in my chest, but I stood my ground, refusing to back down. The silence that followed my words was deafening. My parents exchanged looks, their faces unreadable, and for a long moment, no one spoke. It felt as though I had thrown a stone into a quiet pond, waiting for the ripples to calm down. The pressure was almost unbearable, and I could feel my heart racing in my chest. I had said what I needed to say, but now what? Would they understand? Would they listen? Or would they dismiss my feelings the way they always had before? Finally, my father cleared his throat and spoke, his voice quieter than before but still firm. We've always wanted the best for you, Amelia. You know that, right? We're not trying to control you for the sake of control. We're doing this because we believe it's what's best for your future. You're still young, and you're making decisions that could affect the rest of your life. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. But I'm not a child anymore. I know what I want, and I'm asking you to let me make my own decisions. I've worked so hard for this. I don't need someone else making those decisions for me. Not Mr. Carter, not you. My mother, who had been silently watching the exchange, finally spoke up. Her voice was softer than my father's, but it was filled with the same underlying conviction. We just don't want you to make mistakes that you can't undo. We've seen so many people make decisions they regret, and we're trying to protect you from that. I understand that you're trying to protect me, I said, struggling to keep my emotions in check. But the truth is, I can't grow if you keep doing everything for me. I need to make mistakes. I need to learn from them. That's the only way I'll ever truly become the person I want to be. My words hung in the air between us, and for a few moments, no one said anything. My father shifted in his seat, clearly struggling with the weight of my words. Finally, he sighed, rubbing a hand over his face as if the conversation were exhausting him. I never thought of it like that, he admitted, his voice tired. We've always just tried to help you, but maybe we've gone too far. We don't want to push you away. We just want you to succeed. I know you want what's best for me, I said, my voice softening, but I have to find my own way. I'm not going to get there by doing everything you want me to do. I need to make my own choices, even if they're the wrong ones sometimes. My mother's eyes softened, and for the first time during this conversation, I saw the flicker of understanding in her gaze. I never meant to make you feel like you were incapable, sweetie, she said quietly. We just wanted to make sure you didn't get hurt. I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. I know you've always cared about me, but I'm asking you to trust me. Trust that I can make my own decisions, even if they aren't always what you expect. The room fell silent again. But this time, it was a different kind of silence. It wasn't heavy with tension. It felt like a pause, like everyone was processing the conversation we just had. After a long pause, my father spoke again, his voice gentler now. "You're right," he said, his words slow and measured. "Maybe we've been too controlling. We've always thought we were doing the right thing, but I can see now that we've been holding you back. I'm sorry, Amelia." My mother nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We just wanted you to be safe, but we've realized that we've been pushing too hard. We want you to be happy, to follow your dreams. We've been so focused on what we think is best for you that we forgot to let you live your own life." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. For the first time in my life, my parents weren't telling me what to do. They were listening to me. They were admitting that they had been wrong. "I appreciate that," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm not asking you to just let go completely, but I need you to see me as an adult. I can make my own choices, and I'm asking for the space to do that." My father nodded, his expression softening. "You have that space. We'll stop trying to control you, but just know that we'll always be here if you need guidance." It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time, I felt like my parents truly saw me, not as their responsibility, but as their equal, as someone who was capable of making their own decisions. "I'm proud of you," my mother said, her voice steady, "and I know you're going to do great things." It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a new beginning. My parents had made mistakes, and so had I. But today, we had taken a step toward understanding each other, toward trusting each other. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could face it on my own terms.